and welcome. Welcome to That's the Law. I'm BJ Krintzman. I'm an attorney in Newton, and we're coming to you through Zoom now, and this Zoom show is being taped on November 23rd. So, you know, the news has been moving so rapidly that by the time you see this, it could be out of date. But here we are on November 23rd. And as my viewers know, we have devoted the season to Dump Trump and Let's Take Back the Senate. At this point, again, November 23rd, we've kind of dumped Trump. There are about 80 million of us who think we've dumped Trump, and then there are about 72 million who might still have it in question. But what's for sure is that there are two Senate seats that are up for grabs, and those are both in Georgia. And it's important now, we've all had our chance to vote on the president. Now it's important to do what we can about those Georgia Senate elections. So we always have the experts, and tonight is no exception. First, I'm going to introduce one of my major recidivists. We have with us Senator Cindy Creem. Cindy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
And it's okay if I call you Cindy. Senator, is it okay if I call you Cindy? Because we've been friends for so long.
Yes, please.
Okay. And then we have a first-time guest. This is Barry White, Ambassador Barry White. And welcome to you, Barry. It's nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on. So I'm going to introduce, I think Senator Creem is well known to Newton audiences. She represents us. She represents Newton, Brookline, and Wellesley, and has been representing us for, what is it, about 1,700 years now, Cindy? How long?
999. No, about 18 years.
18 years. Fabulous. And she has risen through the ranks, and she is now the Senate Majority Leader. So she is our little version in some ways of Nancy Pelosi, right?
I'm getting the beads.
Right. So before we get into the meat of tonight's show, tell us a little bit. I can't have you on and not get a legislative update from you. So tell us what's going on.
Well, we just passed a $46 billion budget for the state of Massachusetts, but it was late. It was the 2021 budget. We've been doing 1/12 budgets. This goes from we needed to get it done. Otherwise, we would have to have another 1/12. We're going to be concluding that pretty soon and looking to 2022. Obviously, we were hoping that we would get some money from Washington, that we would get another stimulus bill, which we did not, which makes a significant impact on where we are. In order to keep services, which we did this year, we needed to do a little bit of dance. We took some money from the rainy day fund because God knows it's raining. But we couldn't take it all. And we did some more tax planning and we came up with a budget that really doesn't do harm and does some great things. The problem is going to be on the fiscal 2022 budget. If we don't get a stimulus plan, I'm not going to be smiling as much as I am now. But this was a great budget, and that's what I've been doing at least the past week. And we did something that I thought was pretty interesting. We did something called the Roe Act. So believe it or not, in 1974, we enshrined some laws regarding a woman's right to choose that were not as progressive in a state like Massachusetts as it should have been. In other words, we never codified the right to abortion in Massachusetts law. But we did in the budget codify the right to abortion care in Massachusetts, enabling families to obtain abortions later in their pregnancy and allowing young people to be able to, if they're old enough, from 16 on, to have a say in their own rights in life in the early stages of their abortion.
So we're protected in Massachusetts, even if they overturn Roe v. Wade. If the Supreme Court, that's now packed 6-3, overturns Roe v. Wade, the right to abortion is still protected in Massachusetts. Congratulations, and thank you for that. Tell us about the restaurant bill that you sponsored.
Okay, so in the budget, I got a bill which I was pretty excited about, $175,000 grant program. I worked with Greg Reedman from the chamber, and the 175,000 will be used and given to independent restaurants in Newton, Brookline, and Wellesley to supply prepared meals and other food to food banks, seniors, other persons who are in need as a result of COVID. It's kind of a win-win because the restaurants get the money, the people that need the food get the food. I'm pretty excited about that. It'll be a new grant program. We did a lot of some very good things. We did a grant program for a new inpatient mental health acute care bed to expand that access. Mental health problems have grown and grown, and particularly in COVID, we have people who are waiting for beds and can't get in, and this is a grant program to expand that. I could go on and on, but that's for another show. This is not a show, right? I
That's
get
for another show.
Okay. All right. I'll come back. Ask me.
Okay. Ambassador White, thank you for standing by patiently. I want to give a little bit more of an introduction. He was the ambassador to Norway, appointed by Barack Obama. Parentheses, God, do I miss him? But anyway, and what was interesting, we were talking before the show, and you told me one of the first things tell Newton the first official thing you did as ambassador of Norway.
Well, we welcomed the president and the first lady to Norway so we could receive the Nobel Peace Prize.
That was President Obama.
It was President Obama.
Right.
Fabulous ceremony. And it was just really an interesting way to start my ambassadorship. Let me put it that way.
That is so exciting. And he was ambassador to Norway 2009 to 2013. And also, he's the former managing partner at Foley Hoag, one of the preeminent law firms in Boston, and also founder and chair of Lex Mundi, which is an association of independent law firms. You were former chairman of that, and also chairman of the Mass Association for Mental Health. So you're certainly doing a lot for Newton, for Massachusetts, for the world, for the community. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And so we got to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the show here, and we'll talk about the significance of the Georgia Senate races. First of all, it's unusual. There are 2 seats that are up because usually Senate seats are staggered. They're 6-year terms, but they're staggered so that you're only voting for 1 Senate seat at a time. But because one of the senators left because of health issues, it turns out that there are 2 seats that are available. And at the moment in the Senate count, it stands at 50 to 48, 50 Republicans and 48 Democrats.
46. There are 2 independents.
There are 2 independents who
Caucus.
coordinate with caucus with the Democrats.
Oh, okay. All right. But we need these. We need these 2. We need these 2. And in the event of a tie on a vote in the Senate, the tie is broken by the vice president, who would be Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. So it would be really great if we got 2 candidates. So, and Ambassador White, you've been very involved on a national level in terms of fundraising, nationally, locally, Massachusetts. Tell us what you've been doing. I know you've been having some fundraisers.
Well, we just did a joint fundraiser for the 2 Democratic candidates in Georgia, and we set a goal of raising $100,000 for the event. We ended up raising $750,000 in one evening, with both of the candidates being present. There's going to be
Who was on that call? Who was at that fundraiser?
The 2 Democratic candidates, John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, were both on the call.
And I meant, who were the givers?
The givers were, we formed a group of former ambassadors, and we reached out to our group nationwide. And as I said, we started with the goal of 100,000, ended up with $750,000 that we gave to the joint campaign.
So, and where do you want to be ambassador next?
Not me. Younger people have their turn, but we enjoy doing this and making sure we have an input and making sure that we can get a Senate that will actually enact some legislation that will help people.
Okay, so let's dig into a little bit of who the candidates are in the Georgia Senate races. We'll start with Raphael Warnock, who's running against Kelly Loeffler.
Yes.
Right, okay. And Raphael Warnock is the Democratic candidate, and Kelly Loeffler is the incumbent Republican senator there. And what's interesting about Raphael Warnock, this is Georgia, folks, is that he is an African-American. He's a pastor. He's a pastor at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, which we all know of, I'll call it of Martin Luther King fame. And she is a multi-gazillionaire who flies her own plane and owns the women's, which kind of team is it? I forget. She owns the women's basketball team, I think. Her husband is worth $450 million. So we've got a kind of a David and Goliath here. Tell us what's happening in that race, Ambassador.
Well, it's very, very close. Loeffler was appointed in January of 2020 to fill out Johnny Isaacsen's seat. She calls herself the most conservative member of the Senate, and a voting record would indicate that. She's been with Trump the whole way. She has never run before. And in the Georgia has an unusual system, and it's they had a number of Republicans running in the primary. She only got 25% of the vote. They all run together. Both are Republican Democrats. The top two get into the runoff, and the Democrat was Raphael Warnock, and she only got 25% of the vote or so. So there's some real hope there. Although if you take all the Democrats who got votes, Warnock, he gets close to 50, and she also gets close to 50. So it's looking to be a very, very close race. And it'll depend, like most races do, turnout.
Right.
Will the Democrats be able to turn out the way they did in the election? Stacey Abrams will have a major impact on what happens in that race.
Right. And at the end of the show, we're going to post some websites that you can go to if you want to donate to any of these causes. And Raphael Warnock was raised in the housing projects. Yes. So he's, while she's flying around on her jet plane, her private plane, he was raised in the projects. And what was he like when you talked to him? He was on your fundraiser, you said?
He was on the fundraiser. He was very good. As a pastor, he's a very good speaker. Talked about the history with Martin Luther King and John Lewis from the Georgia, and also about Stacey Abrams and how well done and how important the issues are to people's lives. What we've seen is with Mitch McConnell controlling the Senate, we don't get to have votes even on very important legislation. So he hopes to be able to get to Washington. And interestingly enough, they are running more or less as a team. Even though each race is separate, they have to win both seats for the Democrats. So they are jointly fundraising, splitting their campaign appearances.
And the other thing about Loeffler, by the way, who's the incumbent, even though she was never elected, is that she was investigated because she bought stock in DuPont following a private briefing in January about COVID-19, and she bought stock in DuPont, which was the maker of the personal protective equipment, the PPE we keep hearing so much about. So I guess I don't know that she was exonerated, but they dropped the investigation at some point. But she's got a little bit of what I would call a checkered past.
Well, interesting enough, both of the Republican candidates have been accused of insider trading based on that private briefing. And also, the Senate has cleared both of them from wrongdoing. They were ethics charges brought in front of the Senate, and they were both cleared of those charges.
Right, in the Republican Senate.
Yes.
The Republican Senate, what a shock, it cleared them. Yes, in fact, Perdue, not only was he accused of what we're talking about, but he also, in 2018, you probably know this too, in 2018, he bought stock in a government contractor for the Navy right before he was appointed chair of the subcommittee for naval equipment. It was such a clear self-dealing, insider information kind of thing. And he, again, for some reason, the Republican Senate also dropped that investigation or cleared him. Yeah,
that's true. But it's interesting whether or not it's worthwhile for the Democrats to focus on those issues. Because from my perspective, people care about what affects their own lives. If these people are benefiting, it's bad. But, how are you helping me? What are you doing for me in the district? And that's what I think they ought to be focusing on.
Now, let's talk about the other Senate race. And Cindy, maybe you want to tell us about the difference between how the Senate is sort of operates at the federal level and how it operates in Massachusetts. And then we're going to get into the other Senate race in Georgia?
Well, I think the Senate in Massachusetts is far superior to the Senate in the federal government, and they could learn a lot from us. So I have to tell you that they're the ones that have to learn. But the biggest difference really is that in the federal government and in every state except for Massachusetts and New Hampshire, appointments to the courts are confirmed by the Senate. In Massachusetts and New Hampshire, we have something called the Governor's Council, the Executive Council, for which I was a member before I ran for the Senate. And they confirm or don't confirm all judicial appointments, which include appointments to the Supreme Court. So in the Obama time, a lot of appointments that he made and tried to make, not just the Supreme Court, all the federal courts, circuit courts, he did not get a lot of those appointments passed because he also dealt with the Republican Mitch McConnell. And now we just saw an appointment to the Supreme Court, quick, fast, without a lot of debate, and that's because the Senate is the body that does that. So in addition to all the other reasons, it's really important that we change the face of the Senate and that we don't continue on this conservative, ultra-conservative, right-wing swing that we seem to be doing.
And I think that, that also echoes a lot of the presidential powers that we've never seen abused and misused and wielded so horribly as they have been for the past 3.5 years. And that it's going to take some legislation to kind of rein in those powers as well. So I think there's some restructuring. Would you agree, Senator?
I think there would be a need to do that, but I certainly can't restructure anything with a Republican Senate. But we wouldn't like the restructuring that would go on. But my fear is that there'll be so many changes made by President Trump before he leaves that we're going to have a hard time overturning those. But the Supreme Court appointment, plus all of those federal circuit court judges, end up being confirmed in the federal government Senate, not Massachusetts Senate. So I think that's a very important reason we need to pay attention to what's happening there.
Right. Yeah, we're talking to Senator Cindy Creem and Ambassador Barry White. We're talking about the Senate races in Georgia and the importance that the actual election in Georgia is January 5th. So between the time when you see this and January 5th, you might have an opportunity to do something about those races. Let's go on to the second, the other Senate race. This is Jon Ossoff and David Perdue. And Jon Ossoff is the Democratic candidate. He's a first-time Senate candidate. He ran for the House and lost.
Yes.
Yeah, ran for the House and lost. He's a kid. He's 33 years old. But I like that he was a former investigative reporter and that he was also, I think Senator Creem reminded me when we were talking earlier that he was involved in criminal justice reform. And he's really got some good chops going on. And also, Newton, he'd be the first Jewish senator from Georgia. So he would be exciting. Have you met him, Ambassador White?
I've not met him in person, but I've been on several calls when we're talking about the campaign and fundraising and other issues and things. He's very, very bright, very energetic. Looking forward to doing would be a great job and teaming up with Warnock they need both of them to get into the position. He lost by just a couple of percentage points in the race, the polling to that anyone is going to believe in polling anymore shows the race to be about even. Perdue has not had much of a record and not been known for doing much while he has been in the Senate. And one of the interesting things, and I did get a chance to watch this on the prior debate that they had, the first of what was going to be 2 or 3, also called him out for some of the activities and actually called him a criminal for his activities. Perdue stared straight at the camera. The moderator said, "Would you care to answer?" And he didn't do anything, didn't say a word. At the end of the debate, he said he would never debate with him again, refused the second debate, and now is refusing to debate also in this campaign. And in fact, at the next debate, there's going to be an empty chair.
Wow. Well, as you were saying before, he was investigated for selling stocks. He sold stocks right before the market plummeted based on a private briefing again about the effect of the pandemic on the economy. So he used all this insider information. By the way, what we forgot to mention about Loeffler the lovely, is that she also supported the QAnon
Yes.
candidate, right? Tell
Yeah.
Newton what QAnon is.
Well, I'm not real sure I know what it is. It's a conspiracy theory in which there's some theory that praising Trump and Republicans for fighting the Democrats who are supporting pedophiles. I mean, it goes back to some pizza story about Hillary Clinton going way back in the presidential campaign where somehow or other they were molesting children in the back of a pizza shop, I believe.
Hillary Clinton was molesting people in the back of a pizza shop in Ohio or somewhere. I mean, it's so absurd how they can even come up with this stuff. But anyway,
he won't let go of her. They'll never let go of her, Hillary.
Trump won't. Trump's
Right.
obsessed. He's obsessed. You're right. He still wants to lock her up. I don't know. And that he's refused to debate Ossoff. I mean, this is, and part of this, I don't know, guys, if you're going to agree with me or not, but I feel like I'll use the word audacity of the Trump of Trump has empowered and enabled senators who we had the highest regard for to become their basest and worst self, and that Ossoff, that Perdue would take the position he won't debate Ossoff. You know, they're empowered now.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know if the word is empowered. I think that they're more scared of the Republican base. And so what they're waiting for is to see whether or not the Republican base is there. In fact, some people are looking at the campaign in Georgia and the Senate campaigns as a predecessor to the 2024 presidential election. Mark Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, a number of candidates, and of course the vice president are all going down to Georgia to campaign. And it's thought by many in Georgia that they're looking to get the base for the nomination in 2024 and to see whether they can oppose Trump or not.
Well, right. And if Trump, and that's another thing, the other sort of Damocles that Trump is holding over us is not just that this election was somehow fraudulent, but also that he may run in 2024. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I think the senators feel constrained to come out as blatantly as they might otherwise, because they don't know if he's coming back.
True.
So that could be okay. Now, I think that we owe a huge debt of gratitude to Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams really gave Democrats Georgia, unprecedented. She found, what was it, 800,000 voters or 700,000 voters? Tell us what her role was.
Well, if you listen to Stacey, you should have said, this is not a big surprise. She's been doing this for the last 10 years. Working to organize, get the community together, get the Democrats out there. And this is just a moving forward progress. She almost won the governorship in 2018 and probably was stolen from her, but she keeps organizing. Her main goal right now is to identify, energize, and mobilize the Democratic voters in the state. One of the things they're looking at, there are 22,000 kids, I use that word advisedly, who will become eligible to vote after November 3rd and before the election. So they're identifying these 22,000 people, trying to get them out to vote. That's the whole effort is really to get various communities out to vote and to assure the Democrats do as well as they can in the election.
Right. Now, as you say, people are a little bit skeptical of polls these days, but nevertheless, I think we have a chance. The polls are showing that the races, both Senate races, are fairly close, and that we do have a chance. So if people want to enhance the chance of the Democrats getting in, what are some of the things they can do? And Senator Creem, you might want to talk about that at the local level, and maybe Ambassador White, you know more about it at a more global level of what can be done. And as I said, at the end of the show, we will post some websites if people want more information.
If you're asking me, there are a number of ways, one of which is obviously making financial contributions. We had a lot of money spent on the Senate races in November, and they didn't all work out. Money isn't everything, but without it, you can't compete. There's a possibility they're actually talking about raising $500 million on the Republican side in these two Senate races. What you need to do is raise enough so that the Democrats can be competitive, and then it's up to organization. It's going to be turnout. There are opportunities to send postcards. There are opportunities to send text messages. There are opportunities to make phone calls that will all be coming up. A lot of it's running through Stacey Abrams. She is supporting, and I got the list here, about 10 or 15 organizations in Georgia that are organizing and getting people out to vote. So you can contribute, you can write postcards, you can do text, you can make phone calls through a bunch of different organizations. They've actually asked people not to show up at the moment because they don't want to have a whole bunch of Northerners invading the South. But there are ways of doing it, and Stacey is putting the whole group together on how to do that.
Right. And through our conversations, I have decided what I'm going to do is that I'm going to send money to Stacey Abrams, because I think she will know where to direct it best and where it's most needed. And she's been very effective. So that's what I'm going to do. And as I said, there'll be websites that we'll post those at the end of the show. Last couple of words, but any fear, what I read one article in the New York Times that said there was a little bit of backlash in Maine, that they didn't like these, those of us from other states coming in and telling them who to vote for, when we really didn't care about Maine. What we cared about was the composition of the Senate. And Susan Collins was voted in quite handily. Any thoughts about, is there any fear of that happening in Georgia?
No. As I said, there is concern. They've said, don't come down here yet till we figure out how to use you. There is concern. There's also concern on the Republican side because they're raising a lot of money from out of state. I think they're watching that carefully. I think Maine is a different story. Turns out the candidate wasn't as strong as maybe we thought. Also, the candidate wasn't really a Mainer. She was a little bit of an out-of-state person herself, right. And I think we don't have that problem in Georgia. But they worry about that. They worry about everything when you run a campaign. You can't believe the number of factors you point out there. This is going to come down to who gets their votes out. The problem with runoffs, it's very hard to get people to come vote after the big presidential election, right. And a Democrat has never won a runoff in Georgia.
Right. Turnout is very important. Yeah. Senator Creem, final word. Voter fraud. How rampant is it in Massachusetts? Please.
Oh my God, there's no voter fraud. I can assure you that we're very comfortable in Massachusetts. We did a great job. I was on the conference committee when we passed the vote by mail bill. I've been working with the clerks. There was no voter fraud. They did a great job. David Olson from Newton, the clerk from Brookline, the clerk from Wellesley. Right now, in the budget, I had a bill passed to allow the vote by mail for the upcoming election that we're going to need in Newton. There are 2 city councilor vacancies, one because he's gone to Congress, and the Jake Auchincloss, and the other one because one of the councilors died. And we are going to have a special election, and our intention is to do that by mail too. So there's no voter fraud, but I've been working with the ambassador on voter fraud issues in other states, but I don't think there are any anyway. I think they're part of the trumped up.
If I can add something, there has definitely been voter fraud in Georgia throughout the years.
In the past.
Intimidation.
Yeah.
This may have been one of the first times that it really had a legitimate election.
Thank you so much to both of you, Senator and Ambassador, for being with us. I appreciate this so much. The takeaway is stay involved in the voting process. It's such a precious right. Get out there and vote. And if you can help out in Georgia, do so. Thank you for being with us. And we'll see you next time on That's the Law. Good night.
Jay.
Thank you.